Hey, would you like to learn how to buy a house without getting a mortgage, without dealing with banks, without getting your credit checked, without dealing or worrying about your credit report, your credit score? Would you be interested in learning how to buy a house? Well, I've done this a couple times, and I'm going to tell you the secret right now. So let me give you a little background into how I kind of figured this out. I'd bought lots of houses with traditional bank financing and, did okay, but I reached a certain point where the banks wouldn't even lend me any more money, even though I had a strong portfolio. But there's just certain limits to how much property you can actually own, and the banks start getting a little antsy and nervous about stuff, right? I realized, if I want to buy more property, I need to learn how to get creative. And so I started buying properties, investment properties with lease options, owner financing, and subject to. Subject to just means where you take over somebody else's mortgage. A lease option is where you lease a property with the option to buy it in the future. And then owner financing is where you tell a seller, hey, I'll get you whatever price you want as long as you're willing to be the bank and lend me the money. So I pay the seller back over time. So I've done a lot of deals like that, but there came this point where I've talked about this a lot on my YouTube channel. I was hemorrhaging cash. The market crashed in 2007 and 8. I lost a bunch of my own investment properties back to the banks. And I was losing my own house to foreclosure, on the verge of bankruptcy. And so we just started renting properties for a long time. Well, fast forward 6 years, and it takes a long time for those things to get off of your credit. The short sales, the 30 days, the 60, 90-day lates on your credit report, the foreclosures and stuff like that. It takes a long time for that stuff to get off your credit. And I also had some serious tax problems. Like I owed the IRS $520,000. I've done more videos talking about that. It's still hard to talk about. Very traumatic. But anyway, if anybody was in a place where they could not get a mortgage, it was this guy. I was making good money, but no bank would lend me any money. I could have had enough cash in the bank to buy a house with cash. The bank still would not lend me any money. So here I am. I don't want to rent a property anymore because we were tired of moving. We were traveling a lot at the time, and we just wanted to settle down. We wanted to settle down. And so I started, and also, by the way, being an entrepreneur, a small business owner, it's hard enough to get a loan as an entrepreneur because you don't have a W-2 paycheck. You don't have paycheck stubs. Well, anyway, so I was at this point where we wanted to buy a house, but we couldn't because no bank would lend to me. And so what did I do? Well, we did what's called a lease option. On this one particular property, I was doing my marketing. The seller called me and said, hey, you know what? I'm trying to sell this house, but I can't. I don't know how I'm going to make next month's mortgage payment. We just bought another property. I can't do 2 mortgage payments. What can you do to help me? And I said, well, have you thought about just leasing your property for a little bit and then selling it to a tenant buyer? I said, yeah, tell me more. And I said, well, I think I've got the perfect tenant buyer for you on this property. Me. This was a huge house, about 5,000 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, finished walkout basement on a cul-de-sac in a great subdivision out in the west suburbs of St. Louis. And he said, okay, great, let's do it. I think I put 1 month's rent down as a lease option deposit, and I told him we would take care of all the maintenance and repairs, and we did. For 2 years, I think we were there in that house. Might have been 3 years, and it was a great house. We loved it, but at the end of that time, we're like, we don't want to buy this property. So we had the option to buy it, but not the obligation to buy it. We didn't have to buy it. So we came back and told him, he said, you know what, sorry, we're not going to exercise our option. We're not going to buy this property. And he said, okay. And so we helped him actually list the property, and we helped him find another buyer that actually bought it with traditional bank financing. So it's a good win-win-win all the way around, right? For 2 years, we covered this guy's mortgage payment. We got below market rent. We got a great deal on this property. It was a beautiful home, and we took real good care of it. We never called him once for any kind of maintenance, things to fix and all that. And he got his rent paid every single month. And then by the time, 2 years later, the house was worth a lot more, and he was able to sell it with a realtor and make a lot more money. So he was happy, everybody was happy. Never missed one of his mortgage payments. All right, so then we traveled to Europe. We were gone for about 3 months, my wife and our 4 kids, and we had an RV. We went in an RV for a couple, 3 months. We were homeless. And we thought, well, you know what? I'll be able to get a mortgage. And then we got back, kind of settled back into this, to living here in St. Louis. And guess what I could not get? I could not get a mortgage because I was still about 6.5 years removed. Usually it takes about 7 years for most of those bad things on your credit report to get removed. I was still not 7 years away from getting that stuff removed. Plus I had some huge IRS liens on my property. Again, we don't want to move anymore. We want to settle down. We're tired of traveling. We're tired of moving. And it was very, very stressful. So this is what I'm going to tell you now is what you can do as well now on your own to find your own property. In fact, let me rewind and tell you another story. I had a client named Carl. This was a full-time investor. He was just a regular wholesaler doing all kinds of creative deals. And he made good money doing what he does, but his wife was a teacher. So she did not make enough money to to live in this neighborhoods that they wanted to live in, that they could afford. And he wasn't making consistent, steady income, and he wasn't getting a W-2 paycheck every 2 weeks. So it was a lot harder for them to get a mortgage. They wanted to get a house at the time in a $500,000 neighborhood. And so it was too hard. So they found a seller that was in a very, very tough spot. This house was way too big for her. She didn't have any family with her, and she had a mortgage payment that she needed to move out of the house. She couldn't sell it for what she needed it. She didn't want to sell it at the price that the investor wanted to buy it for an all-cash offer. So he offered to lease option it from her. And what he did was he gave the seller the price that she wanted. In exchange, she gave him 100% rent credits for 5 years. So he put down $0. He didn't put anything down on this property. He had the option to buy it in 5 years, and basically his rent was enough to cover the mortgage payment. He negotiated that he would get 100% of that rent back in reducing the purchase price of the home. All right. So, and if ever any month's rent was 1 second late, he would lose that credit. So from the seller's perspective, it was a win-win. Okay, anyway, so he then lease optioned this property, and then I don't know if they bought it later on, but it was a great property in a great neighborhood. So they solved a couple problems. Number one, they helped a seller who couldn't sell their property and make any more of their mortgage payments. And number two, they were able to move into a really nice property in a great neighborhood where they eventually gives them some time now where they can get the tax returns and get the right loans and qualifications. All right, so anyway, back to me now. We didn't want to rent anymore, but we also wanted to live in a certain neighborhood. We wanted a certain house, and this is a crazy story. I'll give you the short version. We really started praying, like, God, help us find this house. We want to be in this certain specific area. So I got actually really specific, and I prayed, God, help us to find a property. This is true. Help me find a property that's on 3 acres, that's within 15 minutes from our church, big enough where I can have a separate office and we can have a separate area where we can homeschool the kids. That's 3 acres, wooded, private, that we can, I can do these Segway videos. And I didn't pray that, but I do a lot of Segway videos around there. So we prayed and prayed a lot. I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to start doing some marketing. So I went to Zillow and I started texting for sale by owners. And I started texting them things like, hey, I saw your property here. I think I sent the text from my wife. So my husband and I are looking for a property that we can rent for a little bit and then buy. That wouldn't work for you, would it? We started getting responses from that. We also started sending handwritten yellow letters. So I knew these zip codes I wanted. And so again, we wanted 15 minutes from our church over here, just right down over there. And we want 3 acres. So I pulled a list of all of the properties in these zip codes that had a certain number of acres, and had at least 4 bedrooms, and at least, I think, maybe 3,000 square feet or something like that. And we got a list of maybe 1,500 properties, and we sent them all. We said they have to have owned the property for longer than 10 years, I think is what it was. And so we sent out these letters. All these calls came in, and we're also now, in addition to sending out the letters, we're sending text messages. Well, one of the properties, it was a for sale by owner, in a great area where I'm actually driving there now. And he responded back to my text and said, yeah, we could rent it to you for a little bit, and then you can have the option to buy it later on. We looked at it. Long story short, he said, let's do it. We did some paperwork. We made a large option deposit. Normally, I don't recommend making as large of an option deposit as we did, but it was about 10% of the price of the property, which is a lot. But this is a house that we knew we were going to be there forever. We're never going to move again. We're going to buy this property. All right, well, fast forward 3 years. The IRS stuff has gotten really, really bad. And so there's no way I can get a loan on this property. So we negotiated with the seller to convert it from a lease option to owner financing. And he said, great. So we agreed to pay him the same price that we negotiated 3 years ago. But instead of paying rent, we were paying, he was going to be the bank, because doing owner financing was going to make it easier. Normally this is the case, but when you do refinancing, it's easier than getting a new mortgage. Does that make sense? Talked to a mortgage broker about this, but we decided, yeah, it'll be easier. And I talked to some mortgage brokers and they said, yeah, the underwriting requirements are a lot simpler when you're just refinancing. So, well, okay, that's great, except when you have IRS liens attached to the property. So as soon as I turned it to owner financing, I took title to the property. The IRS attached a lien to the property. So that's a whole whole nother story. I did two things that helped us get out of the tax problems that we had. Number one was we started tithing. And number two, I read the book Profit First, and we started implementing Profit First. Short story long, paid off about $520,000 in back taxes within about 18 months. Got rid of the IRS liens, and we're able to finally get a mortgage. We got a mortgage locked in a rate at about 3.5% or something like that. And that was right before interest rates, well, maybe a year or two before interest rates really started going up. So anyway, here's what I'm trying to tell you. If you can't get a mortgage right now, it's okay. There are other options. There are other alternatives of what you can do. Number one, find a seller who's got a property that maybe for whatever reason they just can't sell it right now. They want to, but they can't. There's a lot, even if the market's hot, the average days on market's like 34 days or something like that, right? You can go and look for properties in your areas that have been on the market over 90 days. There's still properties today. I was just looking the other day, like in St. Louis, there's 800 or something. In Atlanta, there's 1,700. In LA, there's 1,800. In Denver, and Nashville, and Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area. I looked at a bunch of different cities, and there are thousands of properties right now, not new construction, that have been on the market over 90 days, all right? Pull that list and send letters to the owners. Text, skip trace, call the owners, contact them and say, hey, would you be interested in maybe leasing your property for a period of time and then selling it to me? Or you can negotiate and talk to sellers. All this creative financing stuff, I don't really do and teach it much anymore for houses. So there's a lot of resources available. I have a lease options course. Join Pace Morby's community, the Sub-2 community. There's a lot of really, really good stuff out there. I think Pace Morby has a great book, A Real Estate Without Cash, I think is what it is. Go get the book. But you just start finding these people. There's a lot of motivated sellers out there that would love to sell their house, but for whatever reason they can't. And they're worried about making next month's mortgage payment. They want to rent the property out, but they don't want to be a landlord. And so you can offer them a solution now. Now, when it's your own specific house that you're going to be living in, it's actually an easier deal to negotiate than if you're trying to do it as an investment property. So anyway, just start talking. It's called the flap your lips method, okay? Start sending out letters, start sending out texts to landlords, to for sale by owners, to realtors, to the owners of properties and say, hey, we can give you whatever price you want as long as you're willing to wait for it, okay? I don't know if this would work for you, but if I could just take over your mortgage payment, if I could just take over your mortgage and buy your property, would that work for you or probably not? What if I could lease your property for a period of time and then buy it? Would that work? It's as simple as that, okay? Now, there's a bunch of steps involved with paperwork and all of that, but make sure you're working with a competent real estate attorney, title company that can help you with all of this stuff. Make sure you've got the right paperwork. It's an amazing, amazing way to buy real estate, okay? And actually, it's a way to control real estate without owning it, depending on how you structure it. And so that's how we bought this house. And we've been living here now 7 years. We love this property. We love the neighborhood. Driving right now, we have a neighbor right there who's a really funny guy. And we love it. We're on 3 acres. We back to trees. We're very private. If you've seen any of my videos, you've seen our driveway. I have a separate little carriage house, finished garage that where I have my office. We have a big sunroom with big private area in the back with lots of trees. Yeah, God answers prayers, right? That's it, man. I appreciate you guys. We'll see you later. Take care. Subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumbs up. Comment down below this video. Let me know what you like. I appreciate you all. We'll see you. Bye-bye.